The old house had grown quiet over the years. At 70 years old, Margaret moved slower than she once had. The stairs creaked louder. The evenings felt longer. Most of her family lived in different cities now. The days were filled with simple routines: watering plants, making tea, sitting by the window with her dog. She makes tea, then sits by the window with her dog. The dog had been with her for nearly a decade. She had found him trembling beneath a highway overpass during a heavy rainstorm. He was barely trusting enough to let her come close. Margaret crouched down in the rain and whispered softly. She wrapped him in her scarf and carried him home. She named him Oliver. Back then, she had saved him. She didn't know that one day he would return the favor. It was an ordinary afternoon when everything changed. Margaret was in the kitchen. She insisted on doing things herself. The jar slipped slightly. She stretched just a little too far. Her foot caught the edge of the rug. The fall was sudden. The sound of her body hitting the floor echoed sharply. Pain shot through her hip, immobilizing her. She tried to sit up, but her leg wouldn't cooperate. The jar rolled across the tiles, spilling its contents. Oliver, she called weakly. The dog had been resting in the living room. Within seconds, he was at her side. His ears stood high. His tail didn't wag. He sensed something was wrong, not because of the noise alone, but because of the way she smelled. Oliver lowered his head near her face, letting out a soft, concerned whine. Margaret tried to move again. The pain was worse this time. She realized she couldn't stand. The phone was on the counter, too far. The front door was closed. The house suddenly felt much larger than before. Oliver paced briefly, then returned to her. He nudged her hand with his nose. She grabbed onto his fur instinctively, but he didn't pull away. He stayed steady. "Help," she whispered, though she wasn't sure he understood the word in this context. Oliver had never been formally trained as a service dog. He was simply loyal, observant, attached, and deeply bonded. Years of living together had created silent communication between them. He knew her routines. He knew her moods. He knew when her breathing was calm and when it wasn't. This breathing was different. Oliver moved toward the front door. Then he barked. It wasn't his usual alert bark at passing cars. It was sharp, repeated, urgent. He scratched at the door, then ran back to Margaret, then returned to the door again. The pattern repeated back and forth, outside. The neighbor was unloading groceries. At first, she ignored the barking. Oliver sometimes barked at squirrels, but it didn't stop. It grew more frantic. The neighbor stepped closer to the fence. "Oliver," she called. The barking intensified. Something about it felt wrong. She approached the door and knocked. No answer, but the barking continued from inside. She tried. The handle, locked. Now concerned, she called Margaret's name loudly. Still nothing. Within minutes, emergency services were on the way. Inside, Oliver stayed pressed beside Margaret, occasionally licking her hand, occasionally returning to bark again. He wasn't panicking. He was acting with purpose. When paramedics arrived and entered the home, Oliver didn't growl. He didn't block them. He stepped aside once he saw them kneel beside her. Margaret was conscious but weak, a fractured hip, they later confirmed. As they lifted her onto the stretcher, Oliver tried to follow. His nails clicked rapidly against the floor. His eyes stayed fixed on her. "It's okay," one paramedic said gently. The neighbor agreed to care for him temporarily while Margaret underwent surgery. The hospital days were long, painful. Rehabilitation would take months. Margaret worried constantly about Oliver. The house felt too quiet without him. Recovery felt heavier without his presence. But Oliver didn't forget her. Every time the neighbor visited the hospital, she showed him pictures and short videos of Margaret speaking. His ears would tilt toward the sound of her voice. He would sit still, listening. Weeks later, when Margaret was finally cleared to return home with assistance, Oliver was waiting at the doorway. The reunion was quiet but powerful. He didn't jump wildly. He approached slowly, as if understanding her fragility. He rested his head gently against her lap while she sat in the wheelchair. She placed her hand on his back, tears filling her eyes. "You saved me," she whispered. Years earlier, she had seen a frightened dog beneath a highway bridge and chosen compassion. That small decision created a bond built on safety and trust. And when her moment of vulnerability came, that bond responded. Dogs don't calculate heroism. They don't weigh options or seek recognition. They act from attachment, from instincts shaped by love and familiarity. Oliver hadn't known about fractures or emergency numbers. He had only known that his person was in distress, and that was enough. Recovery was slow, but Margaret regained mobility over time. She installed handrails, she moved the rugs, she accepted help more willingly, and Oliver remained by her side on morning walks, during therapy exercises, resting quietly beside her chair in the evenings. Their roles had shifted, but the loyalty had not. The story spread gently through the neighborhood, not as a dramatic headline, but as a reminder. Sometimes the lives we save quietly return the favor in ways we never expect. Compassion given years ago can echo into the future, and in a quiet kitchen on an ordinary afternoon, a rescued dog proved that love remembered can become rescue returned.